Thank you. And Mrs. Morvai, please. 3 minutes.
Thank you. I would like to suggest a major debate, democratic debate on migration policy. This migration policy doesn't reflect upon the real experiences of real people on either end. We should listen to the experiences of people who are most affected by migration in receiving and in sending countries. In receiving countries, who are the ones who are most affected? The poorest and most vulnerable people who live in the poorest areas and districts and neighborhoods where all the social tension caused by the present completely unjust migration policies and practices cause. We should also listen, finally, I hope this is not too radical an idea, that we should listen to the sending countries, to the so-called developing countries, community groups, rural groups, women's groups. What are their views about the present status quo of migration? Are they really as happy as we think they are by the mere fact that they are forced by global economic injustices to leave behind their communities, their countries, their cultures, often their families? The present status quo of an attitude to migration is fundamentally unjust. Why? Because according to the status quo, there are two categories of countries, basically. The rich countries and the poor countries. The poor countries include the so-called quote-unquote developing countries, and also to some extent within the European Union. My country, Hungary, and some other new member states. My country happens to be a hostage of the IMF because of our old debts and so on, so we share to a large extent the fate of the developing countries. And the idea is that the poor countries, in order to survive, the citizens of the poor countries, in order to survive, need to leave their loved ones, their communities, their cultures behind, and come to the rich countries to survive. I think this is fundamentally unjust, and we should go to the basics of the whole migration problem and ask, shouldn't we change the global economic policies of the WTO, the World Bank, the IMF, and the European Union that causes all the poverty and all the injustices that are at the root of migration? And shouldn't we stand for a fundamental human right of people to stay in their homelands, in their communities, and shouldn't we shift from a completely money and profit-centered way of thinking and decision-making to a human-centered and community-centered thinking, and from an economic utility and efficiency-centered approach to a justice-centered approach? We should go back to the roots and fundamentals of the whole migration debate and involve real people who are really affected by migration. Thank you.